Today I'm going to show you how I decorated this unicorn cake. Come join me. So in advance of decorating the cake, I had to make some fondant pieces to prepare for actually decorating. So first I printed out this unicorn on regular printer paper, and I used that for the basis of creating the unicorn for the cake. So I first traced the outside of this onto a piece of fondant using an X-Acto knife, and I really just cut out the outline of this unicorn into the fondant. And this is on a piece of fondant, probably about 1/4 of an inch thick. I want to let this harden. It's going to be on the front of the cake when it's finished. After I had this fully cut out, I left this sit for probably a week and a half or so, flipping it back and forth from front to back until it was fully hardened, that it would be able to stand without like flopping over. I did use some Tylose powder to help harden this so that it was extra sturdy on the day that I actually decorated this cake for the customer. After it was fully dry, I also, while that was drying, I also went and I made a rainbow that was also going to be used on the top of the cake. So I used several different colors. I used pastels, and I just used a pink, an orange, a yellow, green, blue, teal, purple, and a yellow color. And I just rolled these out into long pieces of fondant and just placed them into the shape of a rainbow. This is going to be an 8-inch cake. So in hindsight, I should have made this a bit less wide, but in any case, it does end up fitting. It just was probably a little bit too wide for the cake. So I placed it into the shape of a rainbow, and then I'm going to cut off the bottom here to have my actual rainbow shape. Again, I then use piping gel to adhere this to itself, and then I also allowed this to dry for several days so that it's nice and sturdy for when I'm ready to decorate the cake. Next thing I did was did the details for on the front of the unicorn. So I used that piece of paper as a guide, and I just kind of put on some of the details. I made a piece of gray fondant just to make the neck shape around his jaw and neck. I created an eyeball. I'm using some small pieces to put along the horn, and I'll use that just to give some texture when I paint it. I'm also going to create the mane using fondant pieces, and all of that again using that initial unicorn piece paper that I had cut and printed out and cut as my guide. Here I am adding those little pieces along the horn to just kind of add some texture. Here I am adding random pieces of those different colors I used in the rainbow along the head and neck to create the mane. So I am making these pieces a little bit past the actual unicorn. I would then go back and trim these, like giving it a haircut essentially. But I wanted to make sure that it was long enough and that it would cover all of my unicorn. So of course I'm also going to give the unicorn some bangs. It's going to cover all of the traditional parts of the unicorn to give him a robust mane of colorful hair. Now I'm going back and I am making some cutouts of different shapes, hearts and diamonds and moons. And these are going to go along the sides of the cake in addition to that unicorn that will go on the front. I'm using that same set of colors that I used for the rainbow and the mane on the unicorn. Now that the top and front pieces have dried, I'm going back and I'm painting the horn with some gold luster dust. I'm also going to use some pearl luster dust to paint over the entire unicorn here and also the rainbow. And that's just to give it a nice shimmer, not to take away from the nice color of it, but to give it kind of a glittery shimmer to match the whimsy of a unicorn. Just give it that magical look. And I'm doing the same thing as I mentioned to the unicorn itself. And here's what she looks like. And here's what my rainbow looks like. And then after that, it is time to start putting this all together. So I'm using some whipped icing and I'm putting it onto my cake board to keep my cake in place. This is a 3-layer 8-inch cake. I'm doing a layer of chocolate, a layer of vanilla, and then a layer of chocolate. And I'm just going to stack the cake and put it together at this point. I'm going to add that third layer, make sure it's all straight, and then finish stacking this cake. And I'm going to work to make sure my edges are nice and crisp. And now that the crumb coat's done, I'm going to add my final layer to the cake. You'll notice I have this a bit further to the back of the cake board so that I have enough space to put that unicorn on the front. And I'm using my bench scraper to clean up the icing on the cake. And get those top nice and crisp edges. And now I'm going to structure it a bit. So I'm measuring to see where to put that structure in, and I'm putting a skewer down the center to hold it in place. And now I'm beginning to put the decorations on. So I'm putting two toothpicks into the unicorn and also using skewers to put into the rainbow. That's just to help brace the pieces into the cake so that they have extra support. So I'm using a bit of icing to help hold it onto the cake itself. And I'm going to push that into the side of the cake. So that is a very heavy piece, and so to help hold that into place, I'm going to add some fondant balls underneath that to help hold it up, and that will match kind of the aesthetic of this cake. Since around the top where I put the rainbow, I'm also going to be putting balls of fondant to simulate clouds. So I'm using some icing and I'm pushing that rainbow into the top of the cake. So as I mentioned, I should have made it a bit shorter across. As you can see, it kind of pushes out the side on the top. I should have made that less wide, and then we wouldn't have had that problem on the top of the cake. But, you know, lesson learned for next time. So I'm adding those balls of fondant onto the top of the cake, and I'm just kind of getting rid of any icing that might be showing around them. I'm adding those pieces that I made also onto the sides of the cake, making sure that I don't have the same color or the same shape beside each other. And then, of course, the next step, what unicorn cake would be a unicorn cake with adding lots and lots of glitter. So after I add these onto it, I'm going to sprinkle a whole lot of glitter along the whole cake. And with that, that will essentially finish the look of this cake. Here's the glitter going onto the cake, and I put that all over, top, bottom, sides, everywhere. So any way you looked at it, you can't really see it on the images, but there was glitter all over the place and in my kitchen for a long time after. I'm still sweeping it up as I find it. So with that, that does finish the look of this cake. And this is what it looked like when it was finished. If you enjoyed watching this video, I do encourage you to like, comment, share, and of course subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any future content. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and please, please, please come again and watch another video again soon. Thank you again, and here it is all delivered. Thank you and have a great day.